wishes are part of who we are. They are actually hardwired into the fabric of our DNA, which is why some things resonate so deeply with you and you want to see them come to reality because it's part of who you're created to be. I also want to be clear on something else about wishes. Wishes are not manifesting, okay? The real magic lies when we are aligning our actions with our intentions. We have a direct path, a connection there between those two. And this is how we turn our wishes into wealth and dreams and into a done deal. Sometimes we've spent too much time in the grown-up sandbox that we have become completely disconnected from all of the things that allow us to really create in our mind, in our imagination. If you feel like you're disconnected from your imagination, I want you to know that you're not broken. Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast, the show where we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies. Do you realize that at the time of this recording, it's going to be 1 month away, but by the time you listen to this episode, the Conscious Investor Growth Summit is just days away. And so you want to make sure that you are part of that 150 people who are attending that Growth Summit because it is going to be absolutely transformative for you. Here's what to expect. Powerhouse speakers, but we're not just talking about the mechanics of investing. We are talking about a holistic approach where we're diving into health, we're diving into mindset, and we're diving into those wealth building strategies. We have speakers that are really speaking in nuanced ways that are going to support you in transforming your life and really making 2025 such a powerful year where you are closing the gap between where you are and those wishes that you want to bring to reality. You want to be there. Some of my favorite things, aside from the powerhouse speakers and you amazing attendees, is I love food. And I talk about it all the time on the podcast. You probably can't have a conversation with me without food coming up in some capacity. And so this event is sprinkled with all sorts of delicious food and opportunities. And the reason I love that, and probably the reason I love food, is because that's how humans connect. We always connect over the simple necessities in life, and everyone needs to be eating in order to stay alive. So every single day, there is some gathering for everyone. You don't have to have some elite ticket that you paid, crazy amounts for in order to be part of these really extraordinary opportunities to connect deeply. And so every single evening, we're going to have an opportunity. Sunday, we're going to have brunch. If you are one of our private investors, I always do a private investor lunch one day. That was going to be Friday this year. And then if you are a VIP ticket holder, we're going out on Lake Coeur d'Alene on a lunch boat cruise. And that is just the best opportunity to really be around all of the speakers, to be around the sponsors, which we consider partners, and to be around other people who are really in it to win it. So I just want to encourage you, make sure you pick up your tickets, come. If you're traveling, it's beautiful in Coeur d'Alene. You probably won't want to leave. And it's going to be a super fun time, super fun experience. Okay. Our topic today, the power of wish fulfillment in personal growth and wealth creation. I want you to know that wishes, they're not magic, okay? And they are magnets. And yes, they are real. But let's remind ourselves what a wish actually is. Because a lot of times we hear wish and we think you blow out the, candle on the birthday cake, you wish upon a star, those type of things. And it just seems like something that children do. And that it really isn't that important. It's just one of those fun things. But wishes are part of who we are. They are actually hardwired into the fabric of our DNA, which is why some things resonate so deeply with you and you want to see them come to reality because it's part of who you're created to be. And those wishes, they're not things that you can just easily go out and accomplish and achieve. There is a gap there, a substantial gap. They seem like this is something I can't just go out and do in a day, a week, a month, and it might even take longer than a year to bring this wish about. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take collaboration. It is beyond me, and maybe I don't even think I can do it. Okay? You've tapped into a wish when it seems like it's so much farther like out of reach for you, okay? But those wishes, they connect us deeply, and when we desire them, when we are willing to go through these three steps that we're going to talk about here in a moment, we can bring them to reality. And I always just wonder, what would the world look like if everyone gave themselves permission to step into their wishes? What would the world look like? I think it would be pretty powerful because at this point, a lot of people look at anxiety, depression, and mental health, just look at that in Western culture and you kind of go like, what is going on with people? Well, you know what I think? I think people aren't actually tapping into their wishes. And so they are missing out. So we're going to tap into our wishes today. And we're going to talk about why wish fulfillment is so critical with our personal growth and our wealth creation. I also want to be clear on something else about wishes. Wishes are not manifesting, okay? The real magic lies when we are aligning our actions with our intentions. We have a direct path, a connection there between those two. And this is how we turn our wishes into wealth and dreams and into a done deal. Okay, so we're going to talk about three core areas today that I have never spoken about in this way on this podcast or on a live stream or anywhere, right? But we're going to talk about our imagination, our intention, and our execution. I'm putting them in that order because that is a natural order that they need to flow in. But I'm going to tell you, the execution part, that's pretty intense. This trifecta is going to totally skyrocket your personal and financial growth. So we're going to take it from the top. And I promise you that with every single section, you are going to have something, at least one thing that you're going to say, I can start that right now. I can do that right now. I can take action because the action, right? The distance between where we are now and our wishes, it's just incremental steps. It's just knowing what's the next step, the next small thing, the next. And then boom, we're there. I know that sounds so much simpler than it really is. But let's go ahead and dive into imagination. Our imagination is our blueprint for possibility. I love my imagination. I have at least $1 million ideas every single day. Not a million, but definitely I come up with a new idea and I have to release it because I can't execute on every single $1 million idea that comes through my head. Such a bummer. If you want one of those ideas, let me know. I should simply have a list and just dish them out to everybody. But here's the thing. The reality is that sometimes we are disconnected from our imagination. Sometimes we've spent too much time in the grown-up sandbox that we have become completely disconnected from all of the things that allow us to really create in our mind, in our imagination. So, I mean, think about it. If you have been, 15, 20 years into your career, you are comfortable, you know how it goes, it's pretty predictable, you know what the pros are, the cons are, and the seasonalities of different things. And so you're just in that rhythm, and it can actually create a level of numbness to our imagination. And so if you feel like you're disconnected from your imagination, I want you to know that you're not broken. I think that's really important for everyone to know is like, you're not broken. It's almost like a house that, a cabin up in the mountains that, a family has, and they throw sheets over the furniture because they don't go there very often. Okay. And so sometimes our imagination as grown-ups, it's become a place where, we've put sheets over it to protect it from, the dust and debris and such that floats around the air. And we just need to go pull those sheets off. And we can do that one room at a time. And so it's really important to allow ourselves to think beyond what our current reality is. So right now, you might just see, I've got more TPS reports to do. come on, guys. Office Space was a pretty fun movie, right? We might just see those TPS reports. We might see that, wow, this is the most hectic season right now, and all we can think about is what we have to do for work. And wow, it's sports season for our kids. And so we're constantly running around trying to get them there. And so we can just feel like we are in these compartments and there isn't room for variation. We feel a little bit like Groundhog's Day, and we're just going through those motions every single day. And no imagination is required, number one. And it's really not helpful because that imagination can take you off course and you really know, like, oh, I've got to stay on course. So we just have to shift that thinking ever so slightly and to invite that imagination back in, to welcome it back in and to say, what would this look like? What would it look like if going to, the basketball games, if we listen to music we've never listened to before? We can have a little bit of imagination in there. What if we took a different route? What if we went out for a celebratory after game meal, but it was some type of food that we don't normally eat? Like we just start breaking the norms down little by little in small incremental ways. But we have to allow ourselves to think beyond our current reality. And so, again, I am double downing on this, right? But most of us are just so right here. If you are watching on YouTube or if you're watching on a Facebook Live, you see I'm blocking. It's like we can only see like this distance right before us. And if we can just break through this, we can see there's so much more. In fact, on the other side of the camera that I'm looking into right now, I mean, I have a window and I'm looking at the mountains and I can see that's easily 2 miles one direction, right? So there's more than, say, the distance between myself and the camera where you're at, right? Or the screen where you're at. There's so much more beyond that. And so we have to encourage ourselves, invite ourselves, give ourselves permission to look beyond what is right before our eyes. And when we do that, we're inviting in more of that curiosity, the wonder, the delight that we're intended to experience. And that is the experience of life. That's a pretty powerful experience. All right. So the first thing with our imagination, right, is that we really want to stretch our vision out, stretch our imagination out. And one of the ways that you can tactically do this is that you may want to pick up a journal. And if that seems daunting, just remember, you don't have to write in complete sentences. You don't have to spell correctly. You can draw, you can doodle, right? A lot of times as adults, we forget that we get to write the rules. We're not in school anymore, and we're not doing this for somebody else or for a letter grade. We're doing this for ourselves. So design the rules that you want, and whatever that journaling practice would look like for you, then you get to decide and set your own expectations. The idea is just simply to tap into that creativity, into that imagination. And then we also can consider creating vision boards. Yeah, I know you've heard me talk about vision boards before. I actually have one just left over here that I made years ago. And I've actually done most of the things on that, which is pretty darn cool. But my most recent vision board I made, I think a year ago, it's literally a whiteboard. It is just white. And that is all there is on there. It just whiteness. Now, why did I do that? Over to my left, I have, like the pictures. I've got family, I've got vacations, I've got speaking things. I have all sorts of things on there. And by the way, on that vision board, there's also a celebration element to it. So when I do something on the vision board, I actually put something up that represents that I did that. But I chose to use this white space, a board that was white when I was with my Core 4 group. And I'm like, I don't want to do this whole vision board thing. It didn't feel aligned with me because it felt like it was trapping me in and compartmentalizing me. And so for me, that vision board being white represented the vastness, the expansion, the possibility, and the wonder that I want to invite into my life. So I know that sounds very different than most people's vision boards, but really, I want you to encourage you that whatever the practice is that you are adopting to expanding your vision, to expanding your imagination, that it is something that works for you. Okay. I'm going to give you a question to ask. And this is to expand your imagination, but I have to give you a little caveat with this. And that is the question is ask, what if? Now, if you've been listening to the show long enough, you know I'm not a fan of what if. And here's why. But I am in this particular instance when we're talking about imagination. But when we are talking about what if, typically we are doing it in a protective, defensive way, and we're not doing it in an expansive, curious, imaginative, creative way. Think about this. What if we run out of money? What if we run out of gas? What if we run out of food? What if we break our legs? What if, what if, what if? So most people, when they hear that question, what if, most of it takes us into primitive crocodile brain, takes us into fight or flight. It takes us into defensive mode. And so when we are thinking about that question, what if, we want to ensure that we're not going into primitive man type thinking, but we are heading into expansion fun land, right? What if it was possible? What if I could launch that podcast? What if I could write that book? What if I could get that job? What if we could move into that neighborhood? What if our kids could go to that school over there? What if we went on that vacation? What if we bought that car? What if we gave our time and contributed our time to this nonprofit? What if we donated more money than we spent on fun? What if, right? So now can you hear the difference in this what if question? Right? So we get to decide. We have to take control of how we are navigating that what if question. Again, don't go into the scarcity protective primitive mind, like head into that expansion and possibility and potential. And then what if becomes a very healthy, wonderful word for us and question for us to be asking. The last part of really stretching out our imagination, which is our blueprint for possibility, is to expose ourselves to expansive people and expansive things. In fact, right now, by way of you listening to this is expansion. And by me creating this, I'm actually expanding in real time when I create content like this. I like it. It's pretty fun. And then we can also think, we could listen to podcasts. We can read books that expand us. And I want to encourage you that being around expanding people is one of the most powerful things you can possibly do. Now, I have lived in the city, I have lived in the suburbs, and I live in a very, very, very small rural town. And I will tell you this, in every single geography and just population that I have lived in, I have always found other expanders. So I want to encourage you that if you feel lonely and if you feel like there aren't any expanders around here, I just want to encourage you to invite some curiosity into your life and to see if you can discover those people. I think as you start to look for them, you will find them. And a lot of my expander friends, they don't live near me. I have several, but I also have lots of friends that are expansive friends that live, flights away, and we are intentional about getting together. And so once you find your expanders, you want to make sure you're nurturing each other because it has such a powerful effect on our life. Okay, so our first step in using our wishes to really bring about our personal and wealth growth is to step into our imagination. Use that word, what if? It's okay. It will serve you. The second area we want to talk about is intention. So our intention is like, it turns that vision into a magnetic force. We just got done watching a lot of Star Wars, so that's kind of fun. I just had to throw that in there. But really what we need to do with our intention is that we have to make sure that we're being very, very clear and specific. So if we are being vague, we are going to be lost. Here's one thing that I'm going to give you a couple other points, and then I'm going to give you an analogy that's going to tie this all together. So we want to be very specific. We want to make sure that our intentions are aligned with who we are, and then we want to affirm and reaffirm those. Let me talk about those in in an example that really resonates with me. And let me know if this resonates with you. If we pull out our computer in our pocket, or if we're driving in our car, we plug in our destination. Now, I want you to think about a destination that you have that, it may be really far away. So, my mom lives 9 hours south of where I live, right down in Boise. And so, if I want to drive down there and I pull out a little computer in my pocket and I put in my mom's address, it's going to show me the route. And when it shows me the route, I'm being very specific. I'm being deliberate with the information I'm putting in there. It's almost like giving AI a prompt. You need to give a really good prompt. You need to be specific if you want a good answer. So in this case, as I'm plugging that in, I am going to be able to see that there are different places that are showing up on the map. I'm not seeing all the little tiny towns along the way. My town surely would not show up. And I know, having driven this route multiple times, that there are so many teeny tiny towns that we drive through. But I do know that Spokane, Washington is going to show up. And I do know that Kennewick, Washington, the Tri-Cities areas is going to show up. And I know that there are other places in Oregon that are going to show up, like Baker City. And so the point in that is that because I have a specific location, and it is completely aligned with my values, I want to see my family, I can see the major destinations that I'm going to pass through along the way on that journey. I'm not seeing all the little tiny incremental values or incremental cities and towns along the way. Okay. And so these become little hallmark moments, and we can see very quickly if we are off course, and then we can correct if we need to. So let me tie this in a little more, because I'm honestly, you could probably tell I'm like, okay, wait, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit and giving you a lot, part of the execution analogy at the same time. And so let me back this up for a moment, okay? We're being specific. We know the destination we're going to. We're making sure it's aligning with our values, because if this does not matter to you, let's just say that, going to visit family isn't a value of yours, you're going to get there, but you're going to have no satisfaction or fulfillment in arriving there. It's going to be like, okay, so we're here. Now what? Right. And so we want to make sure that whatever it is that we are pursuing, that it is completely aligned with us. There is nothing worse than finding ourselves at the final destination and having that, cool, check the box, we're successful, but I have zero satisfaction. And so many adults are going through those motions on a daily basis. You think about people who are in careers where they're like, well, I can't leave now. I've got another 7 years and then I'm going to get a really great pension. So I'm just going to have to stay here until then. Right. And so we want to make sure, I mean, I'm not dogging that. Let me just be clear. Like, I do get that. It's like, I put in all this time, I'm just going to finish out. I get that. I don't mean to like put that in a derogatory type way. But a lot of times people are staying in situations and circumstances that are not aligned with them. And so they're just staying because maybe there's fear, maybe they're lacking that imagination, they're lacking some vision, and then they're lacking that courage. They're lacking the courage to actually take action towards that. So we want to be really clear with that. As we're going back into this whole analogy of driving and such, when we know that destination that we are headed towards, we can see if we need to make any adjustments along the way. So we're going to make some adjustments, but we don't want to abandon just because, there's traffic, there's a snowstorm, or there's road construction. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to go visit my mom because these things are taking place. I've already clearly identified this is important to me and I'm going to make this happen. And so instead of abandoning the trip altogether or abandoning your movement towards bringing your wish to reality, we're not going to do that. We're not going to abandon it. We've already identified this is really important to me, but we might find another way around it. And so we might tweak our strategy on arriving at our end destination. So maybe I decide, well, you know what? I'm just going to book a flight from Spokane down to Boise instead of making that drive down there. So I'm still getting to my final destination. I'm just doing it in a way that I wasn't intending to do from the very get-go. All right. Hopefully, I'm thinking that that is going to make sense. The other part of when we look at those maps that I want to throw in here is that when we zoom in on those maps, we start to see the smaller steps. And so when we know where it is we're going and we can see the general picture, we can see the different moments, the benchmarks that we need to achieve to know that and to affirm we're on the right path. And when we zoom in further or take the time to write down the steps more incrementally, then we're able to see, okay, well, from this benchmark to this next one, these are the micro tasks that I need to be doing in order to arrive there safe and sound. And so that's really important. I'm going to give a huge shout out to my friend Andrew Hartman. He is Time Boss. He has been on the podcast already. He is speaking at the Conscious Investor Growth Summit that is coming right around the corner. And I absolutely love the Time Boss system because he gives you, like, we know the final destination where we're trying to head, and then all those tasks are broken down and put onto a calendar. They all have a spot. So you know that you're always making progress towards whatever it is that you are trying to generate. It is so absolutely powerful. So come to the Growth Summit so you can listen to Andrew. More importantly, you can connect and meet with him. He's a fantastic human being and someone you want, and definitely an expander. And the strategy, the technique is just revolutionary. He comes from the startup space and he knows what it's like to be busy and pulled in lots of directions. And that's how he came up with Time Boss. Nearly 15 years of getting tossed around like that, you will create a strategy or you're going to get massively burnt out. And so I'm glad that he is sharing that with us. As we're talking about execution and transitioning from setting our intentions, and in setting our intentions, again, we're getting very specific. Where are we going? What is it that we want to do? We're making sure that what we're doing is aligned with our values, what matters to us. And then we're just going to remind ourselves about what is it again that we're going about. One more thing on that. I'm using the EOS system. And so that's from Traction. That's the Entrepreneur's operating system. And so I actually have my goals printed off on a paper beside me. I could click on a hyperlink and it takes me directly to the site where I have my goals. You want to have whatever it is that you are trying to generate, you want access to it. You kind of want it all up in your business and in your face because that is what's going to keep you on track with that momentum that you are looking for. Okay. Now I feel like we can really go into just a couple nuances with our execution. Executing is the bridge between our wishing and our winning. And if we don't execute well, we are not going to win. We might find ourselves going back to the analogy of me trying to drive down, 9 hours south to my mom's house. Like maybe I find myself arriving, but I am just travel worn and fatigued and just weary, and I'm not showing up in my best as the best version of myself, right? I'm not ready to go hang out or anything like that. And so when we are executing, we want to create an execution strategy so that we are arriving at that finish line, not crawling across the finish line, but we are actually like, this is cool. We got this. All right. So we've already spoken about, kind of the map scenario. And here's another strategy I want to throw out there, and that is using micro habits. And one other element that I love, and that is habit sampling. So the habits that we adopt or adapt as we are on our journeys, they're really going to support us in powerful ways. Sometimes I'll use an I statement here. Sometimes I can feel very pigeonholed and trapped by a habit. In fact, for years I woke up at 4 a.m. and I don't know what is going on, but I am pushing back and I feel resistance. And I'm like, I just want rest and I don't want to have to wake up super early and hit the ground running and go, go, go. And that rush there's something shifting in me and I'm trying to be aware of that. And so I'm doing some habit sampling right now. And the way habit sampling works, well, it's a lot like Costco samples on a Sunday afternoon before Super Bowl, right? So just imagine you walk into a Costco and they have all different samples and you can try things, but you're not committed to buying them. But they give you a nice sample so that you really do get an idea of what the flavor profile is or what the texture is or does everyone in the family like this? And so right, those samples become a really great indicator as to do we want to move on or not. So when it comes to habit sampling, along our journey, we can simply say, I think I want to try this out. I think this might help me out. Let me just try this, but I'm only trying it for 1 week. That's it. So let's take journaling, for example. Some people really want to journal. But one of the turnoffs is that if I journal, then I'm going to have to do it every single day at this exact same time. And I'm going to have to, fill up this much of the page. And this is the way my life is going to be forever. And it seems really fatalistic and overwhelming. And that's what happens with most of the habits that we're trying to incorporate into our life. They seem overwhelming at first blush. It's like, ooh, I want to do that, but that seems like super overwhelming. And so, what we can do with this habit sampling is that we can adopt a habit for just a week's period of time. I'm going to sample this. I'm going to see how it works for me. And if it works, maybe I'll move this to a deluxe sample and I will try it on for a couple of weeks and I will sample it for a couple of weeks. And wow, if I really like it after a couple of weeks, maybe I'll sample it for a few months. And if it's still really great after a few months, then maybe I'm going to adopt this as a habit that is going to be consistent in my life. At any point along the way in sampling a habit, you can abandon it and you say, actually, it's really not working for me. It's really not delivering the results that I was hoping it would. And I don't think I want to do this in my life. And you can do that. And honestly, the way our brains are wired, it gives us this subconscious permission. And a lot of times we struggle with feeling like we have failed in some capacity if we don't stick to that habit forever. And so this gives you a bridge, it gives you an opportunity to try that sample out. And if it doesn't work, just set it aside. Just put it on a shelf. It's okay. It's not a reflection of you. Maybe that's not the right habit for you, or maybe it's just not the right time. Either way, you tried and if it served you, great. If it didn't, no big deal. When we're providing execution and we want to really cross our T's, dot our I's, and all of that, we need some accountability. Earlier today, I had some serious accountability because there was a Facebook Live scheduled over on Facebook, right? I already said that. So by having that Facebook Live scheduled, I provided some accountability for myself. It says I have to show up here and I have to talk about the power of wish fulfillment in personal growth and wealth creation. Like, this is what I am committing to do. And if I don't show up and people say that they're going to come to the Facebook Live, then I have some accountability. I have some explaining to do. Okay, so we want to create some healthy accountability in our life. I like that type of accountability. I'm not a fan of accountability partners where you call your buddy up, every morning or you send the text message. And for most people, that's not effective. That's just reality. Most people won't hold their friends accountable. There isn't any pain involved. There isn't any shame, embarrassment, and all of that. At some point, it's like, oh, I get it. I know your baby was up all night. Or, yeah, I know you're training that dog, the puppy, and it was whimpering all night. Or, yeah, I know it's busy at work. I get it, like we are compassionate as humans and we are empathetic and we really want to support the people around us. So most of the time we're not going to hold our friends to a high level of accountability. And that's why it's so important that we have that accountability from the inside out, that accountability is the person in the mirror. Like, when I look in the mirror, did I do what I said I was going to do? So I want to encourage you when it comes to accountability that you are number one, accountable to yourself, accountable to that person in the mirror. For me, my number one accountability is, am I doing what I believe that God is calling me to do? That to me is my number one accountability. My number two accountability is the person in the mirror. Like when I look at that woman, is she someone that I am proud to look at and I'm excited for her? And then I think, what does this look like when I look at Super Rad Steve or your spouse, your partner, right? Like, okay, that's my next level of accountability. Then I've got my kids. And then, right. So I think about accountability in a very different way, but we have to have that accountability in some capacity. Hiring a coach, honestly, is such a powerful form of accountability. I know that I hold my clients to high standards, and I do it in gentleness. But it's amazing. I'll send a text message and say, "Hey, did you have that conversation with that person? Hey, did you do the thing you said you were going to do?" And it's fun because a lot of times I get these messages back from coaching clients, and they'll say like, "Uh huh, I totally did it because there's Julie fire. There's a Julie effect taking place." And it's because that is a healthy, there's a level of trust, and they know that there's a high level of care involved also. And so they know, oh, she really is going to ask me about this, and I really want to do the thing. And so I'm going to get the thing done. Right. So sometimes we just need that right there. By the way, if you are looking for a coach, let's connect up and let's talk about the opportunities that we might, have to collaborate with each other. All right. That's it. Whew. This is funny because I ran through all of this earlier on a Facebook Live that there was no sound for. So it's been interesting. I've been able to say the same thing twice. It's almost like a teacher at a church on a Sunday morning doing three services, right? So I'm not doing this a third time. Just spoiler. So let's just go back through and just touch base for just a moment. We're talking about the power of wish fulfillment in personal growth and wealth creation. We're talking about what wishes are, what wishes aren't. And then we were talking about our imagination and really allowing our imagination to expand. We started talking about our intentions and how we need to get specific. And then we were talking about executing with excellence. All of these things are so important. And I guarantee that one of these areas, you are the poster child. You are a shining star. You are role model. But I also bet that there is one of these areas, like me, execution is something I struggle with. And so it's like, oh, that's my area where I have to continue to focus the growth, right? So let me know if you're watching on whatever platform, let me know in the comments below what area is you're the shining star, you're the role model, and what area you would like to see growth in the coming year. I am grateful for you, conscious investor. As you know, if you've been watching over on the social platforms, there is going to be a big change coming up to the podcast very soon. We're about to turn 5 years old. And I say we because we're in this together. I've created this content, 560 something episodes over the years for you. And it has been such a joy. And you've been listening and you've been cheering and you've been, sending direct messages and text messages and rating and reviewing and all the fun things, right? And sharing. And so that's the we of this. This isn't just me over here on a microphone. This is us together. And I want to invite you. I don't know. We might already have it figured out by the time this goes live. I'm not sure, but we're going to be updating the podcast for year number 5. And that's necessary. I promise you there's going to be an entire episode dedicated to the changes that are going to take place. But I want you to know a couple of important things. One, the conscious investor is not going away. Let's be clear. The conscious investor is a philosophy that I have created over years. It's important. It is a backbone, and it is such a cornerstone of this podcast, of everything that I've built, right? And we've built together. So that's not going away. Just because the show may shift, it doesn't mean the conscious investor is going away. But what the hope is in this shift, in this kind of change, is that we're going to make room for everything to fit comfortably because I've built a lot of things over the last several years, and it feels like the house is a little crammed, and we want to make room for everything to fit comfortably and for new things to come. Although I don't think that we're going to be adding new. I think we're just going to go deeper into what we already have. I appreciate you, Conscious Investor. I hope to see you at the Conscious Investor Growth Summit. You can head on over to consciousinvestorgrowthsummit.com to pick up your tickets if you haven't already. Until next time, please remember, life is a limited time offer, so use every moment with joy and beauty and gratitude.